All right. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? So, 2020 is going well, right? I mean, a global pandemic, there are people continuously fighting for equal rights. And we're living in a very historic moment. And I'm here with Rico Rants to talk about, actually, to discuss the demonstrations. So, how are you today?
I am admittedly a little tired. I had to crunch on a project at work today, so I was just like, okay, let's do this. And I'm just sitting there. I'm a logistics analyst for a aviation maintenance defense contractor. So, what is a big word for data processor? So today for a project, I had to sit down. I'm like just in this uncomfortable position. I'm just like, click, clicking for hours, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty worn the fuck out.
Okay, don't worry about it. I'm pretty tired myself, so we'll get through it.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm good.
So actually, I wanted to talk to you especially because you're very vocal about what's going on right now, as most people are. But I was very curious about a lot of things that you were talking about. So that I'm calling them demonstrations. I know a lot of people would use like terms like protest, like looting, which is something that we can talk about too. The looting.
We will, yeah, we can get that.
Oh my goodness, we have a lot to dive into today.
Let's do it.
So just like to give a bit of a background, what are your thoughts about the demonstrations, about Black Lives Matter?
I'm not gonna lie, I find it actually genuinely heartwarming to see so many demonstrations pretty much all over the country. And I mean, even in small towns, even in places that are just almost entirely white people, like to see so many people coming out in support of this and support of changing our justice system, holding law enforcement accountable, which is long overdue. I'm not gonna lie, it really warms my heart. I am 100% in support of it all.
Oh yeah, I gotta say, same here. And the thing is, I wanted to get your opinions on more of the little underlying things that people tend to talk about the most, especially, let's be honest, the racists that are looking at these demonstrations and are trying to find like certain things about it just so they can like focus on that, which means like the looting, for example. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the looting specifically.
So let's, with regards to the looting, I think it's a mistake for anybody to focus on it at all, because here's the thing about looters: they're not going anywhere, regardless. This situation doesn't matter to them. They would do what they're doing in quite literally any context. It does not matter. They do not fucking care. Like anybody up in here trying to make this seem like this the looting is unique to this and unique to Black Lives Matter and all that is acting in bad faith, and they're completely full of shit. Like that's why I don't think the looting is at all important or unique or even worth focusing on. Like, yes, arguably bad for sure, but again, looters aren't going anywhere. They will be around during natural disasters, any kind of political chaos in regards from small cities to big ones. Like, it doesn't matter. Looters are always going to be around. Focusing on them is a losing gambit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually agree with you on that because let's be clear. You are definitely right. We had protests here for so many different things, and people are going to do this because they have the means to do it. Like, yep. Everybody's going to focus on the protests. So let me just take a guitar. No one's going to see me doing
every time, literally every time. Like I don't. So when I see these people focusing so much on the looting, like it's this uniquely bad thing that only happens when people come out to protest. I'm like, y'all. I grew up in the hood, all right, and let me tell you something. Everybody's always looting, and everybody's always looting a house or whatever, or looting a store, or whatever the case may be. It's just a thing that's just gonna exist. It's not the thing that is uniquely needs to be focused on. So the people who are focusing on it are trying to take away attention from the actual uniquely bad problem that can be solved, that can be dealt with.
Mm-hmm. And that actually makes me think as well about these influencers. I don't know if you've seen these videos. There are influencers just going to these protests to have a little photo op. I have an example too. I don't know if you want to see it.
Yeah. No, by all means. I hate. I like look just on a side note. I fucking hate influencer culture. I hate them so much.
A lot of people agree with you on that.
Oh, they are the most shallow, annoying, obnoxious motherfuckers I have ever. Oh God! But yeah, show me what you got.
Okay, sounds good. Just want to say a quick hi to Nate and Oreo that are in the chat right now.
Howdy, folks.
So I'm going to share the screen right here. I have it up for. So let me just. Really well dressed, holding up a little sign saying Black Lives Matter, and getting their nice picture taken. So this is not the only one. I can't find the other one as well, but there is one that I have seen of someone holding up a drill, some like influencer holding up a drill and going like, "Okay, I'm good now." Going into the car and driving out, going Black Lives Matter.
Well, the chick is coming and take pictures in front of a destroyed building. That was destroyed in one of the riots. Like it's just. And again, focusing on the influencers is also focusing on the wrong thing. They're annoying as shit. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But those type of people have always existed. They have especially become prominent in the advent of the internet and social media. But they're not going anywhere. Yes, they're annoying as fuck, but they are not the problem to focus on.
Oh yeah, and let's be fair. That's what they want. They want attention.
That's what they want. Yeah. They want it.
Yeah, exactly. So I do have to say one thing though. I think it was Logan Paul that came up with that said some speech, and you could find it. I think he put a pin to his profile on Twitter. I listened to it, and personally, I felt it was really well written. A lot of people are saying in the comments like, "Oh, he didn't write it," or "He doesn't care." But let's face it: if someone with that like big
platform says that anyways, does it really matter? Does it really matter if he wrote it? He said something good. As far as I'm concerned, that's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say this too. We're going to talk about Kanye West because there's new information that came out.
He's been supporting, the Black Lives Matter and the protest this whole time, which is funny because Candace Owens is all about her tweeting, "Where's Kanye West when you need him? Not with you, you callous bitch."
And that's what I find so interesting. All this time, he's wearing a MAGA hat. And now there's information coming out that he wasn't actually even giving money to in support of them. I think he was giving to Hillary.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like he's now in the protest. He's like he's actually donating money to the families of the victims. And I'll be honest, I'm shocked. Were you shocked when you saw this?
No, not really. Mostly because Kanye West is kind of crazy. So, because my mother told me a long while back, and reconfirmed it again, that like after his mom died, he wasn't the same after that. A lot about him changed, and he kind of became a lot more, I would say, I guess unpredictable, so to speak. But I did find it hard to believe that he went from Bush doesn't care about black people to make America great again. You know what I mean? Mm. So, because he had a long history of being in support of like Black Lives, basically stuff like that, social justice and the whatnot, and the plight of black people. And so for him to suddenly flip the script on that is what was shocking. That didn't make any sense. And then, so it's a lot more believable that he's been playing those stupid assholes this whole time than it is to think that he completely flipped the script like that, given his mom was an advocate for social justice and he was raised to be that way. And to see him completely flip the script like that, that was what shocked me. Seeing finding this out, to find out he'd been playing them this whole time, that's the Kanye West I remember.
Yeah, and just to give a quick random thing, I just saw a cat go by.
I have 3 cats.
Okay.
All right. That was the one that was just running around. That was Willow. She is a spoiled baby. She is always coming trying to get somebody to pet her. So she might come around. You'll hear her meowing.
Okay.
Second one is Cinder, and thank fuck he's sleeping, because otherwise he'd be attacking me right now. Because he always does when I'm in this chair. He just he'll just jump on the chair and like claw into me and then jump off. And then the third one is Fiona. she just sleeps. She just finds she's a big fluffy cat. She just kind of finds a place to sleep and she just stays there. So.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm super jealous right now. I have no pets. But going back to the Kanye thing, I was actually surprised myself because again, Kanye West is a very interesting character. I can't say for everyone. Everyone has a different way of looking at things. Yeah. But in my opinion, I didn't see if it was too shocking because there's a lot of people that changed their political affiliations rather quickly, especially during this during this time. And Candace Owens was one of them. Candace Owens was someone that even said from her own mouth that she has changed her political opinions overnight. And I just wanted to talk about her quite because she has some really spicy takes about this whole ordeal. I know you really don't like her, and I really don't like her either. She was trending again, and I'm just like, why does she keep trending? But like, she has 2.2 million like followers on Twitter. She has a big platform, so it's important to actually discuss her.
We ain't got no choice.
We have no choice.
Here's the thing about that. I actually did one of those like basically to see if how many of your followers are real and are bots. And I'm not going to speak to the accuracy of it. You know what I mean? It could be bullshit. But when I did it for her, because I was definitely curious, the percentage I got was about half of her followers were bots. You know what I mean? That was the percentage I got for her. But again, I'm not going to speak to the accuracy of that. I wouldn't be surprised because as we've found out time and again, that a lot of people like her, including influencers too, they do it as well, is they artificially boost themselves up by paying for bots to boost up their follower count, which then the algorithm sees that and then starts signal boosting them more, which then real people start seeing them more. So a lot of her influence is, I would argue, very artificial. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, that has resulted in real people taking her seriously, and now it's just, it's genuinely infuriating to see anybody take her seriously. But like, I don't know if you saw, there was this like it was like the 6-person panel of prominent black folk when there was T.I., Killer Mike, and a couple other people. It's Candace Owens as well. And I just seeing these people let her just come up there and just rapid fire bullshit talking point after bullshit talking point without anybody really challenging her. But T.I. briefly, it's so fucking infuriating because she is so clearly full of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what she does is she is the logical conclusion of the inherent flaws to identity politics. You know what I mean? When you say listen to black women, that's where Candace Owens comes in and capitalizes on that. She capitalizes on what I would say, how would I describe the word I'm looking for here? But many liberals' very paper thin understanding of identity politics because they just start listening to any black person, and not everybody has something good to say. So they take her at face value and think you know what I mean? She's a prominent black woman, and she definitely fucking capitalizes. Oh, if you criticize her, like, oh, you don't like what I have to say, because I'm not the right kind of black person. Oh, I'm a coon now because I don't say what y'all want me, what other black people say. You know what I mean? She weaponizes people's own sensibilities against them. She's very good at it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really true. She uses identity politics to further herself. And this is someone who actually stood up in front of Congress and said there's no issues with white nationalism. And it's like there's stack upon stack of like proof that white nationalism is a terrorist threat.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to her. And this is just like a timeline of like I've even looked into this because I was super curious. Someone can't change their political affiliations overnight like this unless there's some kind of like money incentive. So there was actually, I think in 2007, she sued her school because a bunch of people were her like harassing her. And suddenly right now she's this person that thinks that racism is not. I'm hoping my internet's gonna be fine because we just messed
Here's
up
to
again.
hoping.
Are you okay?
No, I'm good. You broke up a little bit, but I hear what you're saying. Keep going.
Oh, you're breaking out again. Hold on a second.
Shit. Hey, sorry, folks. We just we have a little technical difficulties here and there, so bear with us. Like, we're trying our best here. Can anyone hear me? And yes, Fireball, we are talking about Aunt Ruckus or Auntie Ruckus. I think Aunt Ruckus would be more appropriate. Anybody in the chat hear me? Like, type something if y'all can hear me. Anybody? Hello, hello. Hey, can anybody hear me? Like, awesome. Oh, from France. Oh, wonderful. I only know like the bare minimum of French. You know what I mean? Like the what is that? Like the introductory stuff, like Je m'appelle de Rico Baker. What was that fucking other? Comment ça va? I don't remember. Look, glad to have you here. PD Croissant. I don't know how to say it. It's do a French accent. I'm sorry. If you all can hear me loud and clear, thank you all for coming to the show. I'm really glad to be here myself. Yeah, like I said, technical difficulties happens. She's having an issue with her internet. Okay, Trinidad. We're currently in the UK. Hey, it is what it is. I hope you're all safe and doing well. Everything's fine over here on my end for the most part. Like I said, I'm tired from a little crunch at work today, but overall, everything's good. Anybody got any questions for me while we get this sorted out? You just want to put something in the chat? Miss Miranda may ask questions in the chat. No, y'all can. I'd like to think y'all can ask questions. She said to keep talking while she gets her stuff sorted out. So while we pass the time, ask me whatever y'all want. Hey, baby girl, how you doing? Yeah, I know. What's up? Come here. If y'all can see this is my baby girl, Willow. How's it going, baby? He's a good girl. Who's a good girl? You are. You're a good girl. You're a spoiled baby, though, ain't you? Always wanting attention. I swear, if anybody tried to rob us, you'd flop on the floor and try and tell them to, meow at them for them to pet you. Jesus. Ah, shit. That's a lot of fur. What steps do I think we should take? Well, I put it to y'all like this. Much of our oppressive systems have actually long since transcended race. Hence why you see law enforcement brutalizing the shit out of basically everyone indiscriminately. So if you want to end racial oppression, you got to tackle the systems of oppression as a whole. So to do that would mean to, for starters with law enforcement, just as an example, is to demilitarize and defund law enforcement. But there's something more important than that I keep stressing to people, that I'm stressing to people now that isn't often talked about. Because everybody thinks, we need to, slap on more rules and regulations. But if there's one thing I've learned in life is that rules and regulations ain't worth shit if they're not actually enforced. I'll tell you all a short little story. I was the substance abuse control specialist for headquarters and service battalion in Quantico, Virginia, between October 2018 to 2019 to August of 2019. And for the first 6 months there, hardly anybody ever showed up to the urinalyses. And per Marine Corps order, you're required to show up to urinalyses. But they didn't, and we didn't have the authority to to hold people accountable for not showing up. So that's the commanding officer's job. So if you didn't show up, we submit your name to the commanding officer, and his job to hold them accountable as a result. But he never did. He didn't really care about the urinalysis program. So hardly anyone showed up. But 6 months later, he resigned. He got in trouble. That's another story for another day. But then the new commanding officer shows up, and let me tell y'all, he wasn't fucking around. All right, because like a week later, next thing you know, we got motherfuckers calling us like all the time, like every hour on the hour, every day, calling like, is there urinalysis today? Am I on the urinalysis? Did I miss the urinalysis? Now the rules and regulations are worth a damn because the person with the power to enforce said rules and regulations actually gives a fuck about enforcing said rules and regulations. So it's the same logic applies to law enforcement. There are plenty of rules and regulations in place that would prevent a lot of the police brutality that happens and that has happened. The problem is that our leadership from the top down, every person who has the power and authority to hold law enforcement accountable and stop them from doing what they're doing, has actively chose not to do that. And thus, we are exactly where we are, where cops are just going around beating the shit out of everybody. You know what I mean? So you want to end racial oppression, you got to go after our oppressive system as a whole, and that means from the top down. So there you go. You know what I mean? We got to take it. It's a top down issue. So until we have leadership in charge who actually give a shit about upholding the rules and regulations that would prevent law enforcement and other oppressive systems that we have from doing what they're doing, it's not going to stop. So what we can do is what we've done thus far, march, protest, go on strikes. Essentially, we're not going to participate in society until we get the results that we want. So we say, this police chief hasn't been holding accountable the law enforcement that has been brutalizing people, have been caught brutalizing people time and again. That motherfucker needs to resign and be replaced by somebody who will, or that commissioner, or whatever the fuck. And that's what we should be demanding. We need to demand better leadership and accountability. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to apologize. I wrote in the chat that I'm having some technical issues. Nate was nice enough to say in the chat as well that I'll try to speak in the chat if I was still having issues. So I was panicking. I was like, no, what is
You're good. You're good. I was keeping him entertained. Nate actually had another question for me with regards to what was it? You said some claim that capitalism plays a role in that oppression. What are your thoughts on that? Well, yeah, capitalism does play a role in that. How should I say? So oppressive systems perpetuate themselves because people, for a variety of reasons, one of them being is your livelihood is tied to maintaining that status quo. So I'm in the military, I'm still in. I'm not active duty anymore, but I'm still in. But I know being in the military, the role I played in perpetuating U.S. imperialism and the like. You know what I mean? But the alternative, before I joined the military, I come from a poor family, all right, and I wasn't exactly a star student in high school. So I didn't really have many alternatives. And the Marine Corps approached my school. It was the only ones who showed up to my school. So I joined the Marine Corps. I'm aware now of the role I played in it. But at the same time, I did what I did to survive, to get by, to take care of myself and my family. And that's the case for a lot of people is for a variety of reasons, perpetuating the status quo is their only way, their only means to, having a living in a society that basically has no safety nets, no viable alternatives, and it sucks. It does. I would prefer people who have the luxury to not have to take jobs like that. Like right now, due to my injuries, I receive a monthly, essentially universal basic income from the VA in the amount of $1,800 a month. So as I was receiving that gave me the luxury to not have to take whatever shitty fucking job was available, was present to me. And there was a lot of them. And law enforcement was always hiring. I could have took that, but I didn't want to fucking take that. And because I'm not desperate enough to have to take it, I don't have to participate in these oppressive systems anymore. I can pick the job that I want to pick because I have the luxury to say no to those jobs. But there are a great many people who don't have that luxury. And so the status quo perpetuates itself. Does that answer your question, Nate?
Yeah, I was actually looking through the comments and I saw that there was some really good questions asked. I also wanted to, before my internet cuts out, I wanted to get a few of my questions out there just in case. I am so sorry, guys. I'm really sorry, Rico. So I don't know if this was covered, but do you want to talk about Trump's responses during these demonstrations?
Yeah, let's do that. What, do you have a specific question, or you want my take on his responses?
Just your take on his responses so far, especially when it comes to when the looting starts, the shooting starts, wanting the military involvement, trying to get his supporters to actually come to these demonstrations and start. Let's just say start shit.
So that's the thing, is that I expect no less from him because Trump is an authoritarian by his very nature, and it's not all that surprising. Man has a long track record, even before becoming the president, of shutting down dissent in any way, like any kind of dissent towards him in any way possible through use of his money and connections. You know what I mean? So this really isn't all that surprising that he's doing this, trying to be like, bring in the military, supporters, shoot these people, round them all up, bro, dominate them. I'm not really all that surprised because that's what authoritarians do, and this isn't really unique for him. I expected no less, honestly. Like, I did not for a second expect this man to come down and peacefully and try to talk to people and quell their frustrations. I didn't expect that in the slightest. So, I wish I could give you more, but anything I'm saying is really not all that different from what most people are saying. Like, did anybody honestly expect any different from him?
Oh yeah, even people that are like, I'll have to say, I can't imagine someone still supporting him, especially people that claim that they supported a lot of free speech absolutists were like huge fans of Trump. They thought that that he was like this amazing president, and it's coming off of very cult like, and I find it interesting that these freedom of speech people tend to actually still support Trump, even though he's
him being absolutely not a free speech absolutist and have a long noted history, especially now, of shutting down anyone's speech that he doesn't like.
Exactly.
No, it's some of it's definitely cult-like. Others is self-deluding themselves. You know what I mean? And a lot of it's sunk cost, that sunk cost fallacy, and that they already put themselves out there as supportive or at the very least sympathetic to Trump, and they can't admit to themselves that they were wrong about him. So what a lot of people do is just kind of dig in their heels and just keep doing it, even though it's very clearly contradictory to the values they claim to give a shit about, and it makes them look like hypocrites.
Yeah, and a lot of these types would be and again, this is the kind of argument I'm going to give out there, but pro-life. Okay. Well, if you're really pro-life, why would you actually be okay with someone dying because they looted or because they did something? And that leads to what a lot of these, let's be honest, the term is racist. These racist people coming out and trying to find any other type of reasoning behind George Floyd's death, behind Ahmaud Arbery's death. They're trying to find any inconceivable thing that they have done in their life.
Trying to rationalize their indifference and their and the cruelty. See, it's a multifaceted thing, and it all kind of piles onto each other. They want to justify their indifference. They don't want to care, and they don't want you to make them feel bad for not caring. So what their mind is trying to do is they essentially convince themselves that they're right for not caring for something that they very clearly should care about. So that's one layer of the problem. Another is the cruelty is the point, in that they want to justify the cruelty, saying he had it coming. You know what I mean? Even if he didn't die, like I said, the people I was referring to before are the ones who are trying to like pull some Heather Heyer bullshit and say, oh no, she didn't actually get hit by a car or die by the car. She died of a heart attack. It's that same trying to justify their own indifference. With these people, the people who are like Candace Owens, who are essentially saying he had it coming, for them the cruelty is the point. Like they want to justify their own callous, cruel belief system by demonizing George Floyd. That's what the whole victim blaming culture comes from. A lot of it is to justify their indifference or to justify the cruelty that was dealt onto the victim. Essentially, he was no angel. That's where the whole "he was no angel" bullshit came from. So that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that like they're trying to, especially because there's these phone. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to. But so now that everyone has a phone, there's proof now that these are just like disgusting types of behaviors that have come on, and people are now trying to find anything they can in the person's past to justify it, because they're looking at the video and they know darn well that you can't even look, he didn't, George Floyd, for example, he wasn't resisting arrest. There was like many times that the police officer could have like put his freaking knee off his neck. Like this is so much proof. So now they're like, oh darn, okay, I guess I'll have to find something in his past. And there was even a bunch of people saying like he was a porn star at one point. It's like, how is that like any reason?
The reason why they do stuff that this is the third one is no one likes feeling powerless. So when they see something like that happen, just irrefutably something happens that they know they should be upset about, but they don't want to be because they feel there's nothing they can do about it. No one likes feeling like, because the thing about the internet is we're so much more aware of how much cruelty there is in the world. And as a result, it makes a lot of people kind of feel really fucking shitty knowing just how that there's nothing they can do about it. So what the brain tries to do is essentially they try to rationalize it, essentially to protect themselves from that feeling of powerlessness. So they rationalize and convince themselves that he had it coming. So therefore, they don't have to feel angry or upset about what they saw. Because if they get angry and upset, that means they have to do something about it. But when you're angry and upset about something that you know there's nothing you can do about, that anger turns into depression. And the brain doesn't want to feel bad. You don't want that. So it's a whole lot of mental gymnastics to protect themselves from that feeling of powerlessness.
But in this case, I think there is still a clear difference between someone might not wanting to listen to this the news because it's a bit too hard for them, than someone like Candace Owens that like consistently spreads misinformation about people. There's like that clear difference. It's like sure, there's a difference between one person saying I don't want to listen to this. It's like too depressing.
Yeah.
Than Candace Owens being like, oh, you know what? He deserved it.
A lot of that with the missing. That is and this is uniquely pretty much a lot of things with regards to right-leaning media and whatnot, is much of their beliefs are just so many layers of absolute bullshit that they just kind of have to keep stacking on more layers of bullshit. You know what I mean? So what they end up doing is just making shit up whole cloth, simply out of the necessity to justify their already the very foundation of their bullshit beliefs. Like that's what it comes down. That's why they just spread more misinformation. It's also kind of contrarianism. Essentially, everybody else is upset about this, so they have to be they feel they have to be on the opposite side of that. You know what I mean? They're upset, so and they say this is wrong. Well, I have to say it's right. So there's a kind of contrarianism to it, and it obviously, as we know, it helps no one. It does no one any favors, and I'm so done with it.
Do you think there's a connection too with how there's people that they don't care until it happens to them?
That too. That it's and it was that this was especially prevalent here with regards to COVID-19. That a lot of people who are completely unaffected by it don't believe it's real, or that it's nearly as a threat as people said it actually was. That a lot of people can't really see well, I would say a lot of people are very self-centered, so they can't imagine anything being as bad as anyone says it is until it actually happens to them. They can't fathom it until it affects them. They just can't believe it. And there's nothing you can say that'll ever help them believe that, because until it personally hits them, it just doesn't register in their mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely see that a lot online. It's even people that like tend to be friends with people who have who are very disturbing in themselves. And they're like, well, they've never been mean to me, so they're totally okay in my books. And it's the same thing.
Same mindset.
I did want to get your opinion on one thing, and I almost forgot to ask you this, actually. What are your thoughts on Blackout Tuesday? There's a lot of mixed feelings about that. And it's just to be clear for people, Blackout Tuesday was just a way to like protest online, let's say. And it was just to like put a picture, especially on Instagram, just a black screen. And a lot of people were saying like, no, maybe people should be posting like information, like so yeah. I just wanted to see your thoughts.
If you've seen my tweets, you know one thing about me is I do not care for performative action. I don't care for empty platitudes. I don't care for pontification. I don't care for empty gestures and just performative social justice, because that's what that is. It's all empty gestures. I'm like, so to some people, those symbolic gestures may mean something, may make them feel like they give a damn. But to me, you would be better off doing literally nothing, in my opinion, because I personally find it insulting that you think this is at all helpful. Like, fuck, call for a specific, like, come out and call for specific changes that you want. Like, say, we need to do, I would honestly prefer if they just say one thing: demilitarize the police. That's it. Say that. Everybody say that from the rooftops. Cool. That would have been way more effective than this blackout bullshit.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think maybe I shouldn't say trend, but in certain cases, I feel like it could be that. It's like you hear everyone doing it, and then you're thinking, oh, that's a good idea. Let me show my solidarity this way. When there's so many other ways that are way more useful to show your solidarity.
For sure.
There's actually a question, actually, in the comment section. Do you think voting in 2020 is important? From where I am, it does not seem like Democrats are doing anything to help. I think that question is like directed to you.
Yeah, okay. So I work with the Democratic Party within my county, and I can promise you we're definitely doing the best we can over here. Everybody's trying to do something, and it's not always the same, depending on where you are. But as far as the value of voting goes, yes, no, it is extremely crucial that the Republican Party lose big. And I mean, they need to be completely fucking cleaned out from the top down. They need to be electorally destroyed and make it impossible for them to ever win again, in my opinion, because there's a fundamental difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party that a lot of people don't seem to get. And that difference is that for all the Democratic Party's flaws, and there are many, trust me, the Democratic Party fundamentally, at the bare minimum, believes in government and governing. They believe in maintaining the society to even to the thinnest fucking degree. Whereas the Republican Party is, at this age, they've lost their fucking minds. Okay, they do not care about governing. They do not care about government. They do not care about democracy. In fact, as you've seen, like from senators from Trump on down on the Republican Party side, they are more than happy and willing to embrace authoritarianism and fascism and throw democracy out the fucking window. Like, again, for all the Democratic Party's flaws, the Democratic Party would not fire and or ignore scientists and pandemic response teams and whatnot. They would not get all their information from quack doctors and bullshit like that. You know what I mean? They wouldn't do half the shit that the Republican Party has and is currently doing. It wouldn't even be up for debate. You know what I mean? So yes, there's a lot of value in voting, if for no other reason than to not so much to support the Democratic Party, but to end the Republican Party for all of our sakes.
And I just came up with a question, and it might be pretty spicy, especially for people watching. What do you think about? And I reason, like you were talking about, like the quack doctors, for example. It's like a lot of this has to do with, like, let's face it, the Republican Party, Trump, like thinking that prayer is a way to heal people. And in some ways, I really, like, I'm an atheist, but if someone is, as an individual, religious, that's fine. But when it gets into, like, how you deal with, like, actual scientific research, like what we're dealing with right now in a global pandemic, once those things hit it, once politics hit it, what do you think that, like, I think that's another reason why you want to dismantle the Republican Party.
Yeah, because, again, they've become far too extreme. Like they don't realize how self-destructive their own behavior is to themselves. Like, a lot of it comes down to, to their strong belief in, like, magical thinking. You know, the whole point of thinking like that is to absolve themselves of actually having to change the way they behave. They don't want to change. They don't want to change with the times. They don't want to defer to anyone else. They don't want to do what needs to be done in any way that would inconvenience them. Hence why they were so upset during the quarantine shutdowns of all the stores and whatnot, because their way of life, which is highly tied, their very sense of identity being highly tied to consumerism, anything that gets into the self-centered consumerism, anything that gets in the way of that, or makes them have to be aware of how shitty they're being, they reject it. You know what I mean? A lot of right-wing orthodoxy is one of deflection and dismissal of anything that will require of any kind of thoughts that would be critical of them. You know what I mean? That's why they turn to such increasingly magical, ridiculous, delusional thinking, because all of that is easier for them to do than just have to take a little time to reevaluate their views and reflect and change as people. They don't want to do that, and that's why they just become increasingly more delusional as the years have gone by.
That's a really good point, and that's the thing about scientific research. It's like scientific research is what's pushing society forward, and a lot of people don't want that. So
it's demanding. Yeah, scientific research is demanding that they change. They refuse to change. They don't want to. So that means they'll reject science. Science is telling them, hey, you have to change your behavior a little bit for the well-being of others. Their response is, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck the science. I shouldn't have to change. If those people have to die, then they die, because I'd rather that happen than me have to change my behavior even a little bit.
Yeah, there seems to be a thing that a lot of people are coming forward saying they want their freedom more than their safety, and they value their freedom more than their safety. What are your thoughts on that?
It is a incredibly childish idea of freedom, that incredibly childish and self-centered idea of what freedom is. You know what I mean? Because you're still free, but you're restraining yourself for the well-being of, not just for yourself, but for the well-being of others. When they say that, I value my freedom more than my safety, what they're really saying is, I don't give a fuck about what happens to other people. You know what I mean? they think what they're doing is only affecting them, because a lot of their pathology, you see a lot of them say, well, just cordon off the sick people or the people who are most vulnerable and let everybody else go free. All of that is just bullshit. I would say, I was sort of before, excuses to justify not giving a shit about other people. They're very self-centered. Their whole ideology encourages and incentivizes being self-centered. That's their idea of freedom, is their freedom to do whatever they want, regardless of how it affects others. When the rest of us are like, no, if it'll save not just myself but everybody else, then I'll do that thing. If I gotta wear a face mask to protect everybody else, then that's what I'll do. I'm still free to move around. It's just with some stipulations attached. But they don't want no stipulations. They don't want none of that.
And it's interesting how these very same people are against protests and demonstrations, because these are things that you have the freedom to do. At least in the United States, you have the freedom to demonstrate.
Yeah.
So, but then people are angry at that. And these are the very same people that say they value their freedom more than their safety. It's like, well, if you value your freedom more than your safety, you would know why people are demonstrating, and you would respect that they're demonstrating for this because they have the freedom to do so.
But they've convinced themselves that the reason people are demonstrating, the reason is bullshit. Essentially, they try to make up hypocrisy where there is none, to make up straw men. That's what they do. Is they argue against straw men. They do not actually engage with what people are protesting for. That's why instead what they've been doing is saying like, oh, you guys were upset with us for protesting the lockdowns, but this is okay. You guys are complete hypocrites. And I'm like, no, the reasoning is completely different, but they don't care. They don't care about any of that. That's why they're upset with the protest now, is because they're imagining a hypocrisy that does not fucking exist. You know what I mean? It goes into their whole fucking the self-delusion that they constantly do.
Yeah, and I'd rather be on the side of like fighting for equal rights than fighting for someone to get their hair cut.
Exactly. But they don't make that distinction. They don't care to make that distinction.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just saw Dialogue Always says, "Hey guys," so I wanted to say hey.
Hey brother.
And the Fireball said, but they were supporting anti-lockdown protests. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. They don't care to make the distinction between the two protests. They don't. Because to do that would mean to actually honestly engage with what people are saying and protesting about, which is, again, something they don't want to do. I would love for y'all to check out my recent video on this, actually, with regards to basically it's right-wing ideology. It's right-wing media, the ideology of deflection, dismissal, and I forgot the last word, but that's their whole thing, is all they ever do is straw man. I'm not exaggerating. All they ever do is fucking straw man. All they ever do is gaslight and straw man, and just imagine hypocrisy where there is none. Imagine contradictions where there is none. Just make up bullshit about what everybody's protesting about, rather than actually listen to what people are fucking protesting about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is exactly it. And this is what was so frustrating me for so long. And I've been like actually delving into this like hardcore on Twitter. Like I was looking at all these videos. I was seeing how the police were brutalizing people. Like, this is an interesting thing, that freedom, they want their freedom, and we're talking about the freedom to protest, but there's also that freedom goes hand in hand with the police. Let's say the police are messing up our freedoms. And if that's the case, they can comment about how they don't agree with the protest. Okay, you know what? I disagree with you heavily there, but you can disagree with it. But why are you not saying anything? Not you directly, but
no.
Why are they not saying anything when it comes to the police brutality? That is like it's very clear as day.
It's the same reason they'll say some shit like white people cops kill white people more than black people, and you don't see us rioting. It's I'm like, they don't think any deeper than that, because the first thing you should say is like, well, why don't y'all riot? Why don't y'all care when that happens? And that's then at the end of the day, that's the root of it. They don't fucking care, and they want to feel justified in not caring. That's all it is.
It's a huge deflection, and I hate it when people do that. Actually, someone I'm very critical of actually did exactly that. There was a Lauren Chen. I know. Retweeted something about the protests, and she's like, "Okay, do grooming gangs next." And I was like,
"She don't give a fuck about grooming gangs. She don't give a fuck about that. Just like they don't give a fuck about cops killing white people more than black people. They don't actually care about any of that. All of it is fucking deflection.
And if they were to actually care about that, they only bring it up when Black Lives Matter is doing something. So like, I'm so jealous you have cats.
No, it's not my cat. It's my wife. I want her to kiss
okay.
her. She looks really good right now, but she's all embarrassed and bashful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll just say hi like this. Hi.
Hi.
Come on. Come here. This is my beautiful wife.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Yeah, she's all dressed up, and what did I say? I gotta get dressed too once this is all said and done, because again, I'm taking her on a dinner date.
Okay, perfect. Well, I won't hold you. I actually have a few more questions, but other than that, like, I'll let you go to your dinner date.
No problem. Like I said, let's keep doing what we're doing, and once they're all done, I'm going out.
Okay, awesome. I'm jealous because like I'm on a diet and I can't eat as good as you guys are gonna eat.
Man,
he's still on a diet too.
I don't know the meaning of the word diet.
A diet.
Yeah, diet. Okay, yeah, me too. I'm on a diet.
Yeah.
But keep going. You keep going what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, nice to meet you. And to further my point, actually, when we're talking about Antifa as well, that's another deflection. When they're talking about Antifa, the reality is there's people like Proud Boys that are still out there, which actually the person, Gavin McInnes, the person in charge of Proud Boys, has been on camera saying that you should choke and quote, this is by quote, choke a tranny. What the fuck? And this is the type of stuff he does. But, you know, the president of the United States is saying that Antifa is a terrorist organization, even though it's not an organization, but no say about like the Proud Boys and all the other white nationalists out there. So when people like Lauren Chen say grooming gangs, and of course it's a huge deflection, if they truly cared about the fact that white people en masse is getting killed by cops, where is their protest? Are they going out in the streets about this?
It's all, like I said, all of it is deflection. They don't fucking care. That's the root of it. Their ideology is inherently selfish and self-centered, and everything else is just an excuse to justify the selfishness and self-centeredness. That's all it is.
It's the same as all lives matter.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And then with regards to like Antifa example, it goes a step further. To justify their, what's the word I was saying? To justify their cruelty against their opponents is such. I think it was mostly this was. I forgot who said this. Essentially, accuse your enemies of everything you're guilty of. You know what I mean? Because they're not trying to convince like people like us on the left here that we're as bad as they say they are. They're trying to convince everybody else. They're trying to the masses writ large who are not as in tuned to all the context surrounding political discourse. So they accuse all of them of things they're guilty of. They work the refs by saying, "Oh, why are you guys focusing on us? Well, you should be focused on them." Anti-conservative bias, you know what I mean? It's all deflection to keep the eye off of them doing what we know. That we know what they're doing. We know they're the ones who are actually the fascists. We know they're the ones that are actually hurting people and doing everything they accuse us of doing. We know they're the ones committing voter fraud, despite the fact they blame us for voter fraud. We know what they're doing. And they know we know what they're doing. But they know how to work the refs. We don't. We don't do what they do. We don't play dirty like what they do. We don't play the victim while also portraying ourselves as strong. They do that. That's all it is, you know. they know how to play the game. They know how to work the rest. They know how to play the media and play the masses, and it's worked until it blows up in everybody's faces, and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, maybe these guys are Nazis. Maybe these guys are fascists. Holy shit!" Like that's the thing that's along with the Republican Party that even some former Republicans have noted is all the Republican Party and much of the right-wing media care about is controlling the narrative. That's it. All they care about is the narrative. They don't care about what's true, the facts, or anything. It's so long as the narrative favors them, that's all that matters, and they will say and do anything to keep the narrative in their favor.
The thing about Antifa too is that the way they dress on top of that, like anyone can look like Antifa and go out and smash things, and immediately Antifa would be to blame.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword of their the way they portray themselves. Like you said, anybody can dress up like that and claim to be Antifa. That is the double-edged sword of that.
Just to like we're gonna end soon, but I saw that Petit Croissant, I love that name, asked something, and I would like to say something about this after too. So, do you think substantial change can be achieved in the near future, at least before November, regarding the police? So, what exactly do we want to achieve?
Okay, so I said this to Nate talks to you already because while y'all were all out and whatnot, Petit hadn't joined yet. So I'm gonna say this. Like I said, I'm more than happy to say this again to help y'all understand what needs to happen and what needs to change, and what I would very much like to see more people pointing out, because I don't see enough of that. Is and I'm gonna give you to paint you a picture. I'm gonna tell you a short little story. Between October of 2018 to August of 2019, I was a substance abuse control officer for a headquarters and service battalion in Quantico, Virginia, which is a big word for I was the one running the urinalysis and shit. You know what I mean? I had to drug test the Marines pretty much daily. And unfortunately, for the first 6 months, hardly anybody ever showed up. Even though you're by the Marine Corps order, you're required to show up. But we, the SACOs, did not have the authority to hold people accountable for not showing up. That falls on the commanding officer. So when people don't show up, we submit the list to the commanding officer, and it's on the commanding officer to hold these people accountable and demand that they show up. For the first 6 months, that commanding officer, he didn't care to do that. He didn't care to hold anyone accountable. So we hardly had anybody showing up, even though the rules stated that you're required to show up. Eventually, that commanding officer resigned, and a new one stepped up, and that motherfucker wasn't playing around, because after he started enforcing the rules, barely a week later, we started getting phone calls every fucking day, every hour on the hour. Did I miss the urinalysis? Am I on the urinalysis? When is the next urinalysis? Suddenly, everybody gives a shit now, because the leadership actually gives a shit about enforcing the rules and holding people accountable. So the problem with law enforcement with regards to police brutality and the necessary reforms is a lot of rules and regulations are already on the books that are supposed to prevent, or at the very least hold people accountable for the police brutality that we've been seeing. The problem is that the leadership from the top down has made the conscious decision not to uphold these rules and regulations. And so law enforcement is effectively lawless. They can do whatever they want because the people who are supposed to hold them accountable are choosing not to. So as regards to reforms that need to happen is we need to be demanding that police chiefs and commissioners and whoever the fuck either hold people accountable or resign and be replaced with somebody who actually fucking will. Obviously, we want the cops to be held accountable too for the immediately what they're doing, but that's never going to happen if the leadership is never holding them accountable. So we need to be focusing on the leadership within law enforcement, the leadership within our politics, the people who actually control law enforcement's budgets, the people who control the supplies they get, the people in control enforcing the rules and whatnot. We need to be focusing on them, and not seeing people focus on them is as much as I wish people would focus more on the leadership rather than just the cops, because your fucking beat cops, they only get away with it because the leadership allows them to.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, I just want to share my thing as well. That's very similar to what I believe in. Like, I do want to see reform. But the thing is, it boils down to the leadership, and this is like why a lot of people get into this type of job, is because you are powerful in this job, and you can get away with things. And that's the issue, is that when you know you can get away with shit, that's when you're like, oh, I want to feel powerful. I don't have any consequences, so I can do whatever the hell I want. And now that we have phones, and that's why I have to say, really good thing for people to go out to have.
Really good thing we got phones.
Good charged phone as well, because that's super, super important. Because, like, for example, what happened to George Floyd, if no one took a video of that,
we wouldn't have known.
We wouldn't have known.
They would have got away with it, as they have for a very, very, very long fucking time. But that they do this shit even on camera now, like they still do what they're doing, is because they know they don't give a fuck who sees them. They know no one's gonna stop them. They know no one's gonna hold them accountable. No one's gonna fire them. No one's gonna try them and throw them in jail. They know that it takes practically an act of the entire country to get even one cop held accountable. They know. That's why they do it.
Yeah, and they can actually like that very cop, he took out his mace when someone got too close. It's like, you know what? If you come near me, there's gonna be hell too. So it's like, well, we want to defend this man. We don't want him to die. Right. But here you are with your gun, your mace, your baton. You have everything to even harm us as well. So I think this is super important that people are. Of course, there's people that they might have been in the dark. They might have not been aware of everything. But like now that everything's coming out now, especially now that there's like video upon video of cops instigating this.
They are creating their own propaganda against them. I swear, they are just. I've been watching these videos all weekend and all week, and it is just. Honestly, I could not make a better case against cops than what they make against themselves. Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And I know this is a bit random. It's not towards the police officers right now, but I completely forgot to ask. I wanted to get your opinion on this whole white privilege thing, where people are like bowing down.
That was the thing you had initially asked me about. Okay. Keep going on what you were saying before I give you my thoughts.
Yeah, there are videos of people, a bunch of white people, like on their knees, just like basically saying, "We're sorry for having our privilege." Let's say
for being white. We're sorry. Please forgive us for being white. And if y'all saw my video and we need to talk, I highly recommend it. You see, I'm very, very fucking done. Like I was exhausted for seeing all that cruelty, but that right there was just like that took the cake for me. I'm like, y'all could not be further from the fucking point. And a lot of it is because a lot of our discourse is kind of fucking bad, admittedly, towards white people. I've seen this on Twitter for years. It's just like everybody's constantly dunking on white people, like constantly shitting on white people and constantly fucking just calling white people dumb, stupid, fucking privileged, yada, 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 yada. And so people see that they come to the wrong conclusions. Because the conclusion they come to, they just start feeling guilty for being white. They start feeling ashamed of being white. And so now they feel they have to apologize for being white. And that's how you end up with this fucking bullshit, where they're on their hands and knees begging for forgiveness for being white. This was the logical end conclusion to that. Like, I am not cool with the whole dunking on white people anymore. I'm like, at one point I thought, okay, cool. But now I'm like, no, this is kind of fucking awful. And seeing that video pretty much solidified how prevalent white guilt is, and that a lot of people who dunk on white people don't offer any kind of concrete solution as to what they should be doing or any at all helpful solution. You know what I mean? They'll say some shit like, why don't you just try listening to black people? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, okay, which ones, motherfucker? Because when they go seeking out a black voice, they find Candace fucking Owens. You know what I mean? Like, damn, shut the, like, it's just, people are coming to the wrong conclusions because the whole dialogue on the matter of race is fucked, So, because now when I say that, like, you guys want to help, you guys want to use your white privilege or whatever the fuck, here's some definitive, concrete things that you guys can help us get done. And that's demanding police be demilitarized, demanding law enforcement be defunded, demanding law enforcement be held accountable, demanding schools and the like get their proper funding. Just just something actually concrete other than this performative self-flagellation. People beating themselves up and feeling guilty for being white because your guilt ain't worth shit to me, and it ain't worth a damn in general, in my opinion. Like, it's just. And and at the same time, I'm sorry that so many that so many white people feel that way, because a lot of, and I've said this on a conversation I had with another dude. I tried to record it, but it all got fucked up, so you're not gonna be able to find that stream. But this is my point to him on that is you know how a lot of a lot of black people call white people colonizers and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also not fucking helpful, because a lot of what that's doing is punching down. Okay, it goes. Remember how I said before, I was in the military, so I perpetuated the status quo out of a need to fucking survive. So by all accounts, you could have called me an imperialist. I don't believe in imperialism, and I'm morally opposed to it. But the bills got to get paid somehow. I got to feed myself somehow. So if say you tried to shit on me for being a part of the military industrial complex, all I'm thinking is I'm not the one in charge. I'm not the one making this shit happen. I'm not the one calling for the strikes on the fucking poor brown people in other countries. I'm not the one authorizing the colonization and shit. Why the fuck you mad at me? Be mad at them. You know what I mean? So a lot of the ire towards white people is entirely misdirected. It needs to be focused on the powers that be. Not all white. I shouldn't have to say that, but not all white people are bad. And given the context of American whiteness, it's just. I hate to say it. It's so, because I know that it's mostly a dog whistle. It's mostly used as a fucking dog whistle. But I get, it's also why it's so appealing. Is it is okay to be white? You know what I mean? The reason why that's so appealing is because white people have been essentially told time and again that it's not okay, and that they should be ashamed of themselves, and that they're all colonizers, and that they're all at fault for all this shit, and they're not. The majority of them are not. You want to get mad at somebody? You want to go for somebody's throat? Go for the powers that be. Because I have way more in common with a fucking poor white person than I ever will with a rich black person, like, say, Barack Obama. We got him in power now, and he perpetuated the problems too. He fucking sent the National Guard in on Ferguson after those riots, and they were brutalizing people. He said he was the one who endorsed that. The governor sent in the National Guard. But Obama was the one who was like, yeah, fuck, it's telling them to send in the troops to do all that. You know what I mean? Focusing all our ire on white people and making white people feel like shit for being white, for shit that is not their fault, is not at all helpful. Like, imagine if I was mad at my fucking wife for the hometown she's from that is pretty much deeply segregated. It's just the white side and the black side. Imagine me being mad at her about that. She didn't fucking design that. She had nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's my take on the whole matter. Is we need to stop making white people feel guilty so much about shit that's not their fucking fault. White people need to stop doing performative self-flagellation to feel better about themselves and try and do what they think is solving the problem when it's not. And we need concrete solutions that benefit all of us. Period.
Mm-hmm. And I see that this is why these dog whistles are so appealing to some certain white people, is because they, like, for example, all lives matter. It's like, well, of course, all lives matter. So a lot of people that are not understanding the implication there, they're just like, well, yeah, all lives matter. Why is everyone so mad at all lives matter? And this is the very same thing with it's okay to be white. It's like, of course, it's okay to be white. But this is how a lot of the white nationalists.
That's how they recruit people. That's how they get people on the
side. Yeah, that's exactly how they do it.
Like, people try to mock them for those dog whistles, but I'm like, y'all not paying attention as to why this shit is appealing. Y'all don't realize what you're doing is the reason why that shit is appealing to them. Because we constantly make white. Again, it's all over Twitter. I could easily pull up like 5 tweets that have hundreds of thousands of fucking likes and retweets that are just dunking on white people for daring to be upset about being called colonizer or cracker or some shit. Right now, today, I could easily pull that up It's shit like that that's not helping, and it's just nothing but fodder for white nationalists to pull unsuspecting white people who are rightfully upset into their fold.
And this applies to everything, actually. This is how abusers get people involved, too. They're nice to them at the beginning. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry about your father getting angry at you about this time, but I'm going to be nice to you. And this is how they do things. And Oreo made a good point here, too. He said there was the term joggers that was going around.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that was annoying the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So Nate has a question. Are there any racist dog whistles we should be aware of?
Oh, fuck. There's a lot, and they're always evolving and changing to the point that it's honestly kind of hard to keep up with, and then they're kind of disorienting, and that's kind of the point. You know what I mean? What's up, man? Racist what? She said racist dog whistles.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, no, there's just so fucking many, and that's the point. If they understand it, we're not supposed to. We're supposed to be not sure. We're supposed to not. So I could name one right now, but I guarantee it'll be something different later. Like, one example is that this is a new thing. Is a lot of these accelerationist white nationalist types are wearing like Hawaiian shirts. You know what I mean? There's a reason for that. I wish I could articulate it for you, but I don't remember the exact fucking reason why. But that's a dog whistle to them, to each other, is those Hawaiian shirts. You know what I mean? Or the Boogaloo Boys, or why they chose the name Boogaloo. To the average person, they have no fucking clue what that means. But there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fucking reasons for that. But here's the one that is more mainstream. That is honestly unintentionally a dog whistle, but it also is intentionally one. This is one of my favorites. I intend to make a video on this. Is traditional American values or Western culture,
American culture,
or Western civilization. Those are dog whistles, or states' rights. These are dog whistles, all of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because when you ask them, like, what values are you talking about? What's traditional American values? Where they're like, American culture is very different depending on where you go. Like where the America is not a uniformed culture at all. Yet they constantly try to act like it is. But the reason why they say that essentially is because they see their vague, amorphous cultural values as the only values that matter. And what those values typically are patriarchal, white male Christian values, essentially what they want, whereas everybody else's are essentially irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I even thought of one myself. It's the whole sign like this, the OK sign.
Yeah, the OK sign.
And I know that I can say I'm pretty sure that was chosen because it can it's easily an OK sign for many people. Yep. So if you see someone going like this, if they are involved in some kind of white nationalist movement, that's their key to like, okay, look at me, I'm with this movement. Yep. But everyone else is just like, it's just an OK symbol. And that's their way of deflecting it too. They're like, oh, well, that's not a thing. I was just doing the OK symbol. What's the big deal? Look at this black person doing the symbol. Look at Beyonce did it. It's like
they rely heavily on plausible deniability. Mm-hmm. Heavily on that. It is the most annoying and obnoxious fucking thing about them is their use of plausible deniability. They constantly do. They will, again, like I said, they will do things that everybody else does. So that way, when you call them out on it, they be like, "What? They do that over here. What are you talking about?" Again, that's plausible deniability. Extremists, they rely heavily on that to signal to each other that they're on the same side, but also to call anybody ridiculous for daring to be upset with them because, hey, it's a normal thing people do. You know what I mean? It's, again, that's why there's so many dog whistles and why it's so hard to keep up with them because they know how to blend in with society. And that's the point.
Yep. And there's the whole thing about like having a discussion with a white nationalist or hanging out with a white nationalist would be like, well, I'm just trying to understand their point of view or
plausible deniability
doesn't mean that I agree with what they're saying. It's like
they do, but they don't just publicly say they agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to have a conversation. We just want to talk.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I
they never want to talk to the left, though. That's the thing.
No, never. God, the only type of leftists they engage with are fucking their straw man version or people who are just not very good at articulating left wing views. You know what I mean? Like you see Ben Shapiro constantly like his whole claim to fame was dunking on fucking college kids, or Steven Crowder. That's with his whole Change My Mind series. The whole
Yes.
point
Oh
is
my.
to the only point they'll ever engage with a leftist is on their terms and against people who they know are unprepared to deal with their onslaught of bullshit. You know, their loaded questions and fucking bullshit talking points. That's the only time they'll engage with the left. They wouldn't engage with me. You know what I mean? They wouldn't engage with Noam Chomsky. They wouldn't engage with say, I have a lot of issues with Kyle Kalinske, but they wouldn't engage with him. And when they do, they look like jackasses every fucking time.
Mm-hmm. And that's it's interesting you say that, because it's I've seen that many times, even with Vosh. Like, there's a lot of people that would like Ariel Scarcella, for example, would make up an excuse not to speak with him, but then she would go to talk to Destiny, and Destiny was like insanely unprepared for that moment. And even when I was listening to it, I could tell that she was using a lot of like moments to talk over him, so that he's kind of like, overwhelmed. And it was she would constantly say as well, we agree with so many things, because it's so embarrassing and so awkward to say, actually, we don't.
I don't know what the name of that technique is, but it's very common on the right, and just with people like that in general, is they will rapid fire a bunch of bullshit at you. They will overwhelm you with a bunch of bullshit. So that way, and you're still trying to focus on one of the fucking laundry list of bullshit they've said, and they've already moved on to the next. And then when you're trying to, and then it's just super aggressive, essentially, to keep you constantly on the defensive. You know what I mean? That's the point. You will never really be able to get a word in worth a damn, because they'll always dance around you and exhaust you. The goal is fatigue. So their goal is to wear you out. And when you're worn out and defeated, and at this point you're just conceding point after point to them, just because you're tired of being overwhelmed like that, they take that as a victory. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing. Is that what it is? Gish Gallop, the Fireball just put it in. I think that's the name of it, but I don't know. But if that's the name of it, then yeah, that is a very common technique. And y'all want to know how to shut that shit down? You have to be aggressive yourself. You have to pick something and say, no, we're staying on that. They try to move and try to move on to something else. Like, no, you still haven't answered my question. And you stay on that. You do not let up. You don't concede. You do not move on. You keep, even if it's annoying as shit to yourself or even to your audience, you do not let them move on to some other inane fucking point that has nothing to do with the thing y'all were talking about. So that requires you to be aggressive. Say you want to talk about healthcare, and they're talking about 100 other. They start with healthcare and then start with 100 other things. You said, no, get back, motherfucker. We're talking about healthcare right now. You have to essentially force them to engage with what you're saying. And when you do that, what a lot of them end up doing, as you saw with like Ben Shapiro and the Andrew Neil fucking interview and other interviews like that, is they melt down. They get very upset. They can't handle that. So they'll accuse you of being the bad faith actor. They accuse you of being the problem in the debate. And fine, that's a victory. You've won, because they can't actually engage with anything. They can't. They don't know how to. They just know how to overwhelm and be aggressive. So you have to essentially overwhelm them by staying on topic and demanding that they stay on topic.
That's actually you're 100% right. And I have to admit, I fail big time on this, because I would get upset myself. I don't have patience, and I just had something
patience.
That recently happened to me. Someone tried to to go into a different topic, and I just got fed up. And I was speaking to Nate, and Nate was just like, you have to be patient. You have to let him know that you're sticking to a specific topic. And this is a thing that Jordan Peterson fans do big time.
All the time.
They would give you lengthy paragraphs, and you're like, I'm overwhelmed with this. I have to do things. I'm not here to sit through a whole entire book. And when you mentioned Ben Shapiro, that made me think of Nate's video too. I don't know if you've seen it, but he did he did a video entitled like 5 Ben Shapiro fails.
Yep.
And it was really well done, and people were just like, people that claim to be facts over feelings fans had no counter arguments.
There's none.
And I found that super funny.
Because they're not actually good debaters. They're not actually all that insightful or intelligent. The only time they win is when the debate is on their terms, when the discussion is on their terms, at their pace, and when they know they can overwhelm their opponent. You know what I mean? Again, the only way to beat that is to not let them overwhelm you. That requires patience and to know what you need to focus on. Like you said, if you're trying to talk to somebody about a specific aspect of our healthcare system, you have to demand that they stay on that. Do not let them veer away from that. I used to have that problem because my mind, it's very easy to get sidetracked, you know? So I had to learn to force myself to stay on topic, stay on point, focus on this point, and do not let them get out of that point. Don't let them fucking wiggle away and dance around it. So that's my advice to you and anybody watching this. If you find yourselves debating with this and you see somebody, and it's very clear when they're doing it, when they're essentially completely changing the fucking subject, like, no, get back, motherfucker. We're talking about this.
They would also like use insults, so they use like little tiny terms like that would like bother people. It would be like, "Oh, you're such a child" or something, or
ignore it.
You clearly don't understand this, and it's
ignore
like
ignore it every time. You just ignore it. Don't meet them on their terms. Do not ever meet them on their terms. That's what they're doing. They're trying to get you on their field to talk like them. Because they're baiting you. Don't fucking take it. Be like, call me whatever the fuck you want. You better answer my question. I'm gonna keep asking this question until you answer it. Or you know what I mean? Somebody's changed something like, at some point you're gonna engage with what I just said. Like we're gonna keep doing this until you actually engage with the thing I just fucking said. And I'm gonna keep bringing it up whether you like it or not. And again, every time they melt down because they can't do that. They don't know how to actually engage honestly with what somebody is saying. So that's my advice on that one.
Well, that's amazing advice, and we're gonna wrap up soon because I know that we've covered like everything that
Did we cover everything you wanted to talk about?
Oh yeah, definitely everything. I wanted to thank you once again for coming on my channel. Like this was like a great discussion, and thank you for giving us that advice. I think that's would be a cool video to do that, like to go through every type of thing actually.
There are people. Okay, so I want to say this to you and everybody else who watches this. I speak broadly. All right. Whenever I speak on any issue, I speak broadly because going in depth, and I mean like to the fucking nitty gritty, like the like I don't know, like you know Sean, the skull dude, and all that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His videos are like point by point in depth. That's his fucking thing. I speak broadly, so that's how when I do have make a video about that. I'm going to speak broadly, and I might have some specific examples to go through. But overall, if you want to like a complete point-by-point breakdown, there are better YouTubers for that. I'm not one of them. But if you want a broad, general understanding of what you need, what techniques y'all need to implement, or what understanding the social issues or political issues, whatever the fuck's going on, I'm your guy. I like to, my whole technique is speaking to you, not at you. I don't have a bunch of fucking talking points and bullet points. I don't have none of that. I just try to get to the broad general understanding of what the problem is. And if you want specific things, ask me and I will engage with those specific things. Fucking cat hair.
I think that's important because I've seen especially a lot of leftist YouTubers. Their videos can go on from like 20 to 30 minutes, if not 45 minutes. And a lot of people, the reason why, especially the right, is so engaging with people is because they stick to a lot of points. They're very like maybe 10, 15 minutes. And that grabs people's attention. Yeah. So that's why I was actually grabbed by your videos because even people like Shu, they do short videos. That's the kind of content I would like to watch. I have a short attention span, man. So like,
See, that's why that's another reason why I started doing what I do in the format that I do, is because a lot of people on the left, they keep doing, and I'm not complaining about them because they are good, they're very informative, but most people don't have the fucking attention span to sit and watch a video for 30 minutes to a fucking hour. You know what I mean? Most people aren't gonna do that. You know what I mean? That's why I tailor my videos to be essentially like no more than 10 minutes. If I'm doing something longer, like my one about the right-wing media and whatnot, that's because I need to. But generally speaking, I'm going to speak short, like get to the point as quickly as possible, in a way that anybody can understand. And I think that's the left's, especially the online left's, biggest fucking weakness is we don't get to the point. We don't get to the point fast enough, and we don't speak broadly enough for people to understand. You know what I mean? Because a lot of their videos you'd only ever understand if you understand if you've already been immersed in the context surrounding these issues already, and that doesn't have a very broad appeal, you know. And we need broader appeal. And I don't mean like in the dirtbag left kind of way where they think be appealing to reactionaries is broad appeal. I mean speak broadly, like clearly, concisely, and in a short enough way that people's attention span will stay focused. People will focus on a video that's 5 to 10 minutes long. People will tune the fuck out on a video that's 30 minutes to an hour long.
Yep, I completely agree with that. And that's exactly what I would like to see more. We need to kind of go, and this sounds weird, but kind of go on their level so that it's a bit easier for people.
We gotta beat them at their game. We do. Because you see what a lot of leftist YouTubers and whatnot, their videos are like months apart or weeks apart. You know what I mean? Whereas the right-wing media is like every day.
Yes.
They are bombarding YouTube and Google and whatever they are just bombarding the algorithm with their never-ending stream of bullshit. You know? And that's why they, for the longest time, dominated the internet, because their quality may be absolute shit, but they have a lot of shit, like non-stop, a lot. Like Tim Pool, hate that fucking guy, but he's churning out video after video after video on a day-to-day fucking basis.
Mark Dice too.
Mark Dice, you know what I mean? Steven Crowder, you know what I mean? All the just the Daily Wire. They have videos coming out daily, multiple daily. So when you Google any kind of issue like feminism or whatnot, their videos are what's going to pop up. Not ContraPoints, you know what I mean? Not fucking Sean and Jen, not H Bomber guy. It's going to be one of these guys because they overwhelm the algorithm and we're not keeping up.
Yep. You know what? That is exactly the thing. So that's another good advice that you sent out.
I'm full of them.
Yeah. I know you're full of them, but we're going to have to end.
I got to get rolling.
I got to say, though, thank you so much for coming on. And this was like so incredibly amazing. I even learned a lot. I hope that everyone else enjoyed it themselves as well. I'm just going to leave your Twitter and your YouTube channel in the description box below.
Please do.
Just follow him, guys. Like, seriously, his videos are amazing. And his Twitter is just like freaking amazing too.
I will say one thing. I would apologize in my videos. Is like, again, I have a lot of roommates, and I live near an air base, so there's always occasionally a lot of some background noise. Where you see my brother or my wife or roommates and whatnot walking around. I hope y'all don't mind that. I've just at this point accepted that I can't avoid this shit. So I'm just gonna make my videos regardless of what's in the background.
Well, you know what? That makes it real.
So with that being said, y'all have a great night. Thank you for having me.
Take care, everybody.
Peace.